Welcome to the April 2023 update on the performance of my solar array. So let's get started. The most important thing to share this month is that I have switched from my Octopus Go tariff onto a new one called Intelligent Octopus. So stay tuned and I will explain what it is all about. First of all, the disclaimer, please pause and read. I'm not an expert. There could be mistakes in what I'm sharing with you. I'm just doing my best to put out there what I know. Thank you. I see lots of you who are using my Octopus Energy referral link. So for those of you who haven't switched yet, if you're interested in going to Octopus, if you use this link on the screen, you will get a £50 discount from your first bill, and so will I. Or alternatively, if you call them, you can quote this reference number, which they should be able to apply onto the account to get you the discount as well. Okay, so first an update on voltage. So the grid hasn't done anything in the last month. We're just kind of watching and waiting. So if you look at the last portion of this, it seems that the adjustments that they have made is on the most part holding the average voltage around the 240 volt mark, which is what the grid want to be doing. Even though we want a bit lower, that's what they want to be doing. So it is kind of in the middle of the zone. The guy has said to me that our local transformer has been stepped down as much as it possibly can. So to reduce the voltage further, he has to go further upstream, which is the substation, and make some changes there. And that substation is an automatic voltage adjustment thingy, which is monitoring the voltage to the whole area and doing whatever by itself. So he was going off to make some adjustments there. I don't know, I haven't had an update from him, but this is what the graph shows. So the extreme spikes of high voltage have most definitely reduced. On the most part, we're hardly seeing anything. But since he's made an adjustment in January, we're now starting to see low voltage spikes popping in as well. As far as I can tell, the equipment doesn't appear to have been tripped out or stopping. So whilst we're still seeing a few spikes here and there, they don't seem to be too extreme, and it doesn't seem to be so frequent that the equipment stops. Let's see what happens. All right, moving on then. Here are the key numbers. So over the lifetime of having solar power, we have now produced 7,796 kilowatt hours. 2023 alone, we have produced 1,612. This time last year, we had made 1,557 kilowatt hours, so we are up 55 kilowatt hours or 3.5%. Remember, we have 4 extra panels compared to last year, which I would expect produces more, but then the month of April and a bit of March was particularly miserable in comparison to last year. If I talk about electricity imported, this year we have imported 3,164. This time last year we had imported just 949, and I've double checked the numbers to make sure there's no mistake in my calculation here. It is correct. So year on year we are up 2,215 or 233%. The reason for this is the same as last time. We were not charging our EV at home last year because we were barely using it, and we had a lot of free credit from Audi to use up at public charging points first. Also, I had only just got my hands on the Eddy, which was only diverting excess solar during the day, whereas now I have it configured to heat up water at night time because my off-peak electricity tariff is cheaper than my gas tariff. Only by a little bit, but every bit helps. So therefore, we are pumping a lot more demand into our electricity compared to this time last year. Gas, so far this year, we've consumed 15,705 kilowatt hours compared to last year at 15,711. So we're down 7 kilowatt hours, which is basically 0%. So given what I've just said about diverting hot water from gas to electricity, I would expect to be down further, which is true, but I know we've had the heating running longer compared to last year because it's not been as warm in the last couple of months compared to the year before. CapEx has stayed the same, and then finally OPEX. So far, year to date, we have saved £1,746.93 by having all this equipment. This time last year, we had only saved £380.26, so we are up 1,366.67 or 359%. So those are the highlights. The key message here is we are saving tons of money by moving around how we use it, and that's the key point. The key contributors to this, which you'll see in a few moments, is using solar power to fuel the house, but also having an EV that's taking massive chunks out of it because the cost of the equivalent amount of diesel is much higher. Okay, so from Enphase then, for the month of April, we produced 774.1 kilowatt hours. We exported 51.9. We therefore imported from the grid 627.6, meaning our house consumed 1.4 megawatt hours. These numbers seem crazy, but they are correct. We were doing a lot of driving, which required us to charge the car from the grid off peak. So these big grey bars that you see on the top, the bulk of it, which is driving this number up, is basically the car. The little bit of export that we have is higher than we expected, and the reason for this is that we're topping up the battery. We've done the hot water, so the excess goes to the grid. Now, even if the car's plugged in, by default it's not going to charge unless I kind of fiddle with some settings and turn it on. So what happens is if I don't notice that the battery is full, it ends up going to the grid. Other times, if I'm not at home to use up the excess power, then it ends up going to the grid. So as we're getting into the summer months now, I'm tuning down the amount that the battery charges overnight, so that we have capacity during the day for it to charge up. So there's days here where I haven't quite got it right, based on the weather forecast, whatever, and so the battery fills up quite quickly, like by lunchtime. But anyway, we've got our numbers back under control compared to the prior 2 months. So our grid dependence was just 46%, as in just over half of our entire energy consumption came from solar power for the month of April. And then on the far right hand side, you can see the contribution from each of the different solar panels that we have here. So the front of our house and the summer house making the biggest contribution, and the rear of our house, although it's not making as much, it's still making a dent in everything. Alright, best and worst days. So the best day was the 29th of April. We produced a whopping 41.6 kilowatt hours. You can see we were charging the battery overnight. We weren't charging the car on this day. And then from around 6 a.m. the solar power kicks in. We have a great curve here, a small blip just after 3 p.m. and then it tails off at what looks like about 7:30ish in the evening. So for this day, only 18% of our energy came from the grid, which is basically this overnight portion which was heating our hot water. The rest of it was all solar power. The worst day was the 1st of April. We made just 10.3 kilowatts. Again, overnight we were heating the hot water and we were charging the car for a bit, and then during the day it was pretty miserable, so we were just about meeting our demand and putting enough into the battery just to get us through past midnight. Okay, don't forget to like and subscribe if you find this interesting. It really helps me out if I get those kind of numbers up. It's validation for me that I'm not wasting my time and you guys find this useful. Okay, household electricity consumption. So here's a more detailed look at where we're consuming all these kilowatt hours. So overall for the month of April, we consumed 1,341 or 1,341 kilowatt hours. Now, it's getting a bit confusing because we have so many different colours on here. So let me make it simple. The blue and the yellow is what our house kind of consumes on standby, right? So if you add up those two bars, you can see going across all the way back in time that our consumption month on month is about the same, right? It seems to fluctuate between kind of high 400s and about 650 most of the time, right? That's what our house needs. So now we're getting into the summer months. The portion of blue is increasing, the portion of yellow is increasing and the blue is decreasing, which means more of our daily household demand is being met by solar power rather than buying it from the grid. Whereas you can see in the winter months, the amount of yellow is small and the blue is big, meaning we're importing more of it from the grid. So if you just get solar panels and do nothing extra, this is the objective, to make the yellow bar big and the blue bar small. Then you're getting most of your demand from solar. Now the other colours that I've added on here, the different shades of red and the different shades of green, this is brand new electricity demand that I created. Because we are producing so much solar power, I've now had to find additional demand in the house to use it up. So we've got the EV, And the different shades of red indicate whether the EV is charging at peak time, off peak, or for free on solar power. And we've also got the green, which is the eddy. So are we heating our hot water for free, or are we doing it off peak? I don't use the eddy during peak hours because it's cheaper than to use gas. So hopefully you can see, if you forget the new stuff for a moment, like for like on the old stuff, we're producing maybe 80% in the month of April of all of our household demand from solar power, and the rest comes from the grid. And then from all this new demand that I've created, you can see that a lot of it is happening because I'm diverting energy which was otherwise consumed as gas into electricity because it's cheaper, or I've created new demand because of the car, but then that's paying for diesel. So hopefully all these different colours and bars make some sense to you. If you don't have an eddy, or you don't have the car, or both, whatever, you just need to look at the blue and the yellow section and kind of see my performance over time, right? That is the proof point to you that there is enough solar power being produced from the system to reduce the blue, which means we're not buying it from the grid and paying them for it. Moving on to talk about gas then. So for the month of April, we've had a nice step down in the amount of gas that we're putting. So it is starting to get a bit warmer. We're putting a tiny bit more into the eddy, but overall we are close to 50-50 between the main portion of our house and the new portion of our house. Looking at our Octopus bills then, so first of all, in the month of April, we changed tariff. On the 8th of April, I went from Octopus Go to Intelligent Octopus. So the way they've calculated the bills is to bill us on that date to separate the old and the new tariff. Then on the 21st of April, Octopus wrote to us to tell us that they are reducing the price of the Intelligent Octopus tariff that we're on because the wholesale prices have reduced. So we got a further price change on the 21st of April. So this means all the numbers for April are pretty difficult to follow. But anyway, here are all the different bills that we have for the month of April on the screen, including the money that we get back from exporting, and plus all the energy that we saved during the winter months by playing the game that the grid was doing about saving energy and not using it at peak time, earned us Octa points, which amounted to £1.94 off a bill. Okay, let's talk a bit more about what Intelligent Octopus is. So first of all, let's look at the tariff changes. So here's the Octopus Go tariff that I was on the whole time. So off-peak, I was paying 7.14 pence per kilowatt hour, and these numbers do not include VAT. And peak time, I was paying 29.36 pence per kilowatt hour. Standing charges are there, but I never talk about them because they're fixed, and regardless of what happens with these tariffs, I'm always going to be paying that standing charge. So we can't be completely independent of the grid in the London area in the UK because we just don't have enough sunshine. Okay, so on the 8th of April, the tariff changed and we went on to Intelligent Octopus. Their tariff was 9.52 pence off-peak and 42.89 pence peak time. That is a whopping increase in our peak time rate, which underlines what I've done in getting batteries and charging up the battery overnight so that I can meet my daytime demand and not have to pull any peak time electricity. So this is particularly useful in the winter months when we don't have enough solar power, doing it for free. Then on the 21st of April, this Intelligent Octopus tariff got reduced. So the unit rate off-peak went back to 7.14 pence, so what we were on before, and the peak time rate dropped from 42.89 to 39.67. So it's helpful. What it means is the amount of money that we're saving by having all this equipment would have been greater when we're on 42 pence per kilowatt hour. It's going to be a fraction less now that we're on 39 pence. But overall, when you see all the numbers, it's going to be dramatically higher because we're comparing it to being on 29 pence, which is what we were on before. Okay, the standing charge has also gone up quite dramatically, almost double. I have my opinions on this. I think it's a nonsense that this is going up. Their argument is that the cost to deliver energy to us is increasing, and this is also supposed to accommodate all those other suppliers who are going bust, and the bigger suppliers having to bail out those companies. But in my opinion, I haven't heard of many other companies going bust in the last kind of 6 to 12 months. There were many before that, so I don't know why this has gone up dramatically. I personally think that they are putting some of the cost that belongs in these buckets into the standing charge. But anyway, so here's a summary of the tariffs. The export tariff has stayed the same. I'm on a measly 4.1 pence. there is no other tariff that Octopus offers that I can switch onto for export, which earns me more money. If I have a smart import tariff, then I can't also be on a smart export tariff. Although they call this smart export guarantee, that's the government's brand name. A smart export tariff from Octopus can get you 15p per kilowatt if you are not also on an import tariff. And my gas has stayed the same so far. This is the unit rate, but then at the moment there's still a government rebate which reduces this by like 1.5 pence per kilowatt, something like that. All right, so a summary of what Intelligent Octopus is. So first of all, my Octopus tariff was coming to an end in April anyway, my Octopus Go tariff, so I had to do something. I looked across all of their smart tariffs to kind of figure out what suits me best. And they have Agile Octopus, they have Octopus Flex, they have Intelligent Octopus, there's still Octopus Go. And I kind of looked at all the things, I did all the numbers, and the thing which stuck out in my head is on Octopus Go, the 4 hours of off-peak electricity isn't enough. I can't charge the car and I can't charge the battery enough in those 4 hours to keep me going. So it would have been good to have a bigger window. So Intelligent Octopus offers a 6 hour off-peak window. The default is from 11:30 at night until 5:30 in the morning every single day. That's the off-peak window. They also do something else which is quite smart. They connect to your car and they connect to your car charger, and Octopus intelligently turns on the car charging to smooth out the overall demand on the grid. So what this means is if you come home from work at 7 p.m. and you plug in your car, so it's done, even though it's not due to start until 11:30 when the tariff is cheap, if Octopus determines that there's low demand on the grid at 7 p.m. because not enough people are cooking dinner at home, they might decide they're going to start charging your car at 7 p.m. to use up some of the available electricity. And if they do that during a peak time hour, they will only charge you the off-peak price. So in the Octopus app, when you've connected it together, you get an additional button which appears at the bottom called Devices. And in there, you can basically tell the app, I need my battery charged to 50, 60, 70, 100%, and I need it ready by this time in the morning, or whatever time of day you need it to do. And then Octopus decides what time to start charging your car and for how long, so that it is fully charged to the point that you asked it to be by the time you asked it to be. So, that's the tariff I'm on, and so far I've been having some teething problems with it, and I don't think it's necessarily an Octopus problem, it's just me trying to get used to how it works. So first of all, when you plug your car in, it often starts charging instantly. So then you go into panic mode because you're now paying for peak time electricity, which you don't want. But Octopus say it just does this to make sure the connection's there and working, and then it switches itself off after a few seconds. So initially when we got this tariff, I was panicking and pressing buttons trying to get it to disconnect so it doesn't charge at peak time. So that was the first issue. But in doing that, what I've done is I've permanently disconnected it from Intelligent Octopus. So I realised that when I needed the car to charge, it wouldn't charge overnight. I was getting like an error message on the app. The solution was I have to go to the car, unlock it, pull out the charging plug and put it back in. It resets everything, then it works. And I've got to not mess with it when it's doing its kind of test connection as soon as you plug it in. The other thing is, now that we're getting into the summer months, I need it to charge up using the solar power. So I have to fiddle with some settings in the Octopus app to get it to do a forced charge right now, like override the system. They call it a bump charge. So I have to do that in the Octopus app, and then I have to go back to my Hypervolt app, which I've told to only charge the car on a scheduled time period from 11:30 until 5:30. So I've got to put that back onto a plug and charge setting so that it charges now. And then, if I don't want it to charge at 7 kilowatts and pull power from the grid, I only want it to discharge my battery because it's full or have solar power, I need to adjust a setting to reduce the rate at which it charges. So whilst Intelligent Octopus is bringing me benefits by providing me a 6-hour window instead of a 4-hour window, and I can tell it to what level to charge my car. So if I only want it to go to 80%, it will do so and then stop rather than 100. That's kind of a useful feature. The consequence of this is that it's become a bit more fiddly for me just to kind of override and charge now because I want to, because I need to, right? That's the catch. So I'm leaving it as it is. I'm still trying to kind of get used to the whole thing for the time being. Let's see what happens, and we'll go from there. The thing that I do have up my sleeve is we have 2 chargers. So if I'm really finding this a bit tricky and I want to do some daytime charging, then I will simply just plug the car into the other charger, which isn't connected to Intelligent Octopus, and it will just do what I want it to do. Anyway, hopefully an explanation from me has been helpful. I'm not saying these are all the features of Intelligent Octopus, but these are the things which stood out for me compared to the rest, and that's why I've got it. The thing I noticed though on the bill is that I don't get a breakdown anymore of how many kilowatts I pulled from off-peak electricity versus peak time electricity. I did get those numbers when I was on Octopus Go. Now they just give me an average rate to say the average unit rate I've paid for electricity over this time period is 12.2p, and that's the average of peak time and off-peak kilowatt hours. So I might have to adjust my crazy calculation spreadsheet to figure out how to accommodate this as we move forward. Okay, referrals, as I said before, if you do want to switch to Octopus, whichever tariff you want to go to, if you use this link on the screen, you will get £50 discount off your first bill, and so will I. I'll also put the link into the description so you can copy paste it. If you choose to give them a call, then quote that number that you see on the bottom line instead, and they will also be able to apply the discount. I know a few of you have got in touch with me to say they ask for my name and address and all these kind of things, but other people are able just to tell them to apply it, and whatever the name and address is, it doesn't matter because they can still put it on and push it through. So just be a bit more assertive with them if you speak to them on the phone, and it should go through without a hiccup. Okay, let's talk about my energy. So for my energy, this is what the graph looks like. So you can see basically every day we are pulling electricity from the grid to heat the hot water overnight, and then we're starting to see an increased amount of surplus go into the eddy during the daytime hours. What I'm now finding tricky is to distinguish at the end of the month how many kilowatts went into the eddy from the grid at off-peak rate versus at solar rate, which is free. Now, the eddy gives you this information day by day, but it doesn't give it to you as a summary at the end of the month. And I was doing some sort of calculation before to get to the numbers, but I'm starting to realise that calculation doesn't seem to add up properly. So I reached out to My Energy over a week ago to ask them how to get to these numbers. I mean, they're obviously collecting it, they're just not making it available in the way I need. And it's been a week or so and I haven't had any kind of response from them. So My Energy, if you're watching, it would be nice if you could reply back to us. Alright, installer estimates versus reality. So, first of all, we have now produced 79% of our year 2 target, which is this blue line up here. 9,832 is what we need to hit to meet the installer's estimate, and we're currently on 7,796. So 79% of the way there. So we will comfortably hit the target, I would say, by the end of June. When I do the update for you in July, I think we should be there. And that would get us there about 5 months ahead of our year 2 anniversary, which is good news, right? If we're beating installer estimates, it means that we're paying off the system quicker than the installer said to me. That's the point of this chart. On the right-hand side, what have we consumed versus what the installer said? We've already blown past the year 2 target. We were supposed to consume 4,916 by the end of year 2, and we've already consumed 7,273, or 150%. So most likely by the end of year 2, this will be up at around the 200% figure, which again is also good news, because the more of it we're able to consume in the house than the installer thought, again, we're going to reduce the payback period from the circa 18 years I was told to a much lower number, right? So when you see my latest number, you're going to start to see why I'm tracking all these metrics and why what I'm saying is more accurate than what the installer was telling me. Okay, data. So let's go through all of the crazy numbers. Now, like I said, because of all the tariff changes, I had to capture all these numbers 3 times during the month. So we have 3 columns for the month of April. So there's a lot to read out, but I'm going to go fast. So I haven't got a sum for April because it will mess up all the other charts that we've got. So we're going to have to look through all the numbers individually. But in April, remember the first column here is for the 1st to the 7th of April. The second is from the 8th to the 20th of April. And then the third column is from the 21st of April to the 30th of April. So in terms of production, we had 173 kilowatts, 353 kilowatts, and 248 kilowatts. So that should add up to the 774 I mentioned right at the beginning. Export, we've got 21, 21 and 16, so that should add up to the 51 I think I said it was at the beginning. That means the house consumed solar of 152, 332 and 232. From that number, the actual house portion was 102, 256, 160. We put 33 into the eddy, 71 into the eddy, and 48 into the eddy. And then we put into the EV 16, 4.5, and 23 kilowatts. From the grid, we have imported 179, 246, and 200 kilowatts of kilowatt hours of electricity. And for gas, we've imported 767, 1150, and 847 kilowatt hours worth of gas. CapEx hasn't changed. You can see over here the adjustments to our unit rates for gas and electricity, peak and off-peak and export, and these numbers here do include the VAT. Okay, in terms of monetary savings then, so OPEX. Using solar power in the house has saved us £31, £115 and £66. Having Octopus Go, now I'm not changing the label here to Intelligent Octopus because I will mess up my spreadsheet, but this means a smart tariff from Octopus. So we're basically saving £2, £6 and £17. The eddy has saved us £3, £40, £7.35 and exactly £5. And the Octopus Go tariff, or the Intelligent Octopus tariff on the eddy, has saved us £1.33, 23 pence and £1.40. And in terms of exporting electricity, we have got 86 pence, 86 pence and 66 pence. Looking into the car, so charging the car from solar power has saved us 165, 46 and £2.38. It's cost us to charge from the grid £6.75 and £2.92. Now this is because I was having those teething problems on Intelligent Octopus, and I also had some long journeys to go on, so I needed a fully charged battery, and I kind of wake up in the morning and realise something's gone wrong. So at that point I have no choice but to charge at peak rate as much as I can before I need to leave, which is still cheaper than buying electricity from a public charging point. So that's why I've done that. Off-peak purchase of electricity for the car is £8.70, £13 and £6.65. And then charging from a public charging point is £14 and £31.82. Now the public charging point charging is twofold. One, I was doing such long journeys that I couldn't do a round trip without charging up on the go. And second of all, I was having those teething problems, so before I left in the morning my battery wasn't on 100% in the car, meaning I definitely didn't have enough range to do what I needed to do. So using the EV has obviously saved me from paying for diesel. So the amount of diesel, the equivalent amount of driving would have cost me is £102, £133 and £141. So I've done quite a lot of driving in the month of April, so these are quite high numbers for my car. So when you shake out all these numbers, the net savings by having an EV is £95, £99 and £102. So total OPEX savings £135, £229, £193, which means our cumulative total is now on £4,560 of OPEX savings. Ignore this number, it's a mistake. So we have a balance of £18,931 to pay off. We've paid off 24.1% of our system. So keep in mind we've been going for about a year and a half, and we've paid off almost a quarter. So based on that simple calculation, break even should be in 6 years' time. Currently the forecast is saying 7 years, 6 months and 28 days, so 7.5 years. We're going to be somewhere in that window, right? We're taking into account that the first year we didn't have as much equipment, so we've had a slow start. I've been learning how to work with the system to figure out how to kind of optimize it and make the most of it. But anyway, this is much better than the 18 years that my installer told me, and the forecast is 7 years, 6 months, 28 days, and these calculations would tell us that we're still going to be taking chunks out of this and probably break even somewhere between the 6 to 7 year window, which is amazing, right? And hopefully all these numbers are helping you understand my calculation, why I think this makes sense. I know some people are commenting that I should include the cost of the car and all that kind of stuff in my calculations. You've got to draw the line somewhere, and if you rewind back to one of my very first videos, I do explain why I haven't included those numbers in here. From my point of view, you always have a steady state of cost, and what I'm trying to do is calculate the difference in cost by having this new technology in the system. Okay, finally, I've rebuilt the payback curve for you. So this is what it looks like now. It's starting to get a bit more interesting. This kind of light blue, sky blue line at the top is the capex, and this minty green looking line over here is the opex. So break even is when the minty green catches up with the sky blue. So you can see that we're on the way now. Like we say, that is roughly a quarter of the way there. The other lines at the bottom represent the various other savings that we're going. So these other lines all sum up to this green line here. Okay, so you can see that we're on the way. You can see that I'm trying my best not to spend any more money on equipment and give this whole thing a chance to make a dent, but it really is making a dent. If I reflect back on all of this and think of what I would do differently, I would probably have made 3 changes. This is in no particular order. First of all, I'm not convinced by the eddy. Whilst we are diverting solar power and using the eddy, it cost me £500 and something to install the eddy, including buying the equipment, and the amount of money that it saves is relatively small, so it will take quite a long time to even break even on the eddy alone, and that's on the assumption that it doesn't fail in any way prior to that date. So in hindsight, the eddy is a good idea, but the eddy as a brand is very expensive, and if you get a solar iBoost, it works out much cheaper, but then it's also got some reviews which are questionable, so it's probably likely to fail sooner. So having a solar diverter, so far by my calculations, it doesn't add up. Break even is a long way away. So that's one thing I probably wouldn't do in hindsight if I was doing this again somewhere. The next thing I would do is have more battery capacity right at the beginning. So if I had got additional battery put in when my entire install was happening at the beginning, it would have worked out cheaper for me. I wouldn't have had to pay for additional labour I ended up paying for, and I would have also saved money on VAT. So that's something for those of you who are considering getting this to think about. I had no way of figuring out how much battery storage I needed, and my installer didn't provide me any advice on how to calculate this. And in hindsight, what I figured out is you need enough battery storage to survive about 20 hours of the day. Basically, whatever smart tariff you're on, you need enough battery storage to comfortably keep you going during the peak time hours. The off-peak hours, it doesn't matter, because you're going to be charging the battery again for the next day from the grid, and in those off-peak hours, whatever your house is actually using can come from the grid as well. So that's why I say, with Octopus Go giving you only 4 hours of off-peak electricity, I need 20 hours worth of battery storage. So you need to know how much your house consumes on average every day and calculate 20 hours of that, and then get battery storage which can accommodate that. I know this stuff is expensive, but if you want to try and get this perfect, that's the way to do it. The final learning I would say is I put panels on the back of my house, which I keep saying faces west, but when you look at a compass heading, it is almost northwest. So the amount of money that we spent to put scaffolding and put panels there, the payoff is quite slow. I probably could have avoided putting panels in the portion which gets shading from my neighbour, and potentially I could redo the whole calculation and not put any panels there at all. For the amount that it's generating, it probably isn't paying for itself. The panels on the front of the house are doing a fantastic job, and the extra panels that I installed myself on the rear of the house, on the summer house, are making a fantastic contribution. And if you just want to try and get this whole set up and spend less money, I would probably think about not putting them on the roof at the rear of my house, which is facing northwest, or whatever the compass heading for that was. Alright, so we've reached the end, so I hope you found this month's update interesting. If there's other charts you'd like me to try and produce, or something I haven't explained properly, please do leave a comment. to help me out. And once again, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really does help me out. Okay, catch you next time.